Alex. I entered my cabin, feeling more dejected than when I almost got kicked out of the mech training program for almost killing my instructor. God, what a day that was. I'll have to tell Ava that story. They'll probably get a kick out of it. Shaking myself from the recollections of the past, I wheeled the mech over to its stand. I looked up at the hooks used to keep it from falling over before deciding it wasn't worth my time to try and get it onto the hooks. Besides, if the mech fell on the floor, then I wouldn't be able to do anything about it unless I got a crew member to help me with that issue, so I just left the mech in the wheelchair. With a hiss, the hatch opened once again, and I was treated to fresh air, or at least air that hasn't been recycled to hell and back by the life support systems inside the mech. I'm certainly not skipping out on my exercise today, I thought to myself as I strained to climb down the mech and onto the bed, where I lay for a time before finally drifting off for some restless napping, a time-honored tradition of Terrans everywhere. It's always a very interesting experience when I sleep, because I don't really have dreams, or at least dreams that I can remember. However, I could always figure out what kind of dream that I was having based solely on what kind of emotion that I was feeling at the time. But when I woke up an hour later, I didn't feel anything besides despair. Damn brain. Give me at least some happy chemicals every once in a while. Today's been bad enough without them. I looked over to the mech. This is all your fault, you know. If you had been strong enough to resist that blast, then there would be no war. Humanity's secrets would still be intact, and most importantly, I would still have a job, I shouted at the top of my lungs at the unmoving machine. I haven't even finished paying you off yet, I said softer. I tried to throw my phone across the bed at it, only for it to land 20 feet away, while the mech only gave me the emotionless, featureless face that the outside world, at least until recently, saw me as. I walked over to my phone in a huff and picked it up. Wait a minute, I thought to myself, freezing in the process. If I could get my hands on the schematics for a few things and get it all working, then the captain would have to let me back on the security team. I rapidly dialed a number that I hadn't dialed in at least a year. I impatiently waited for a few moments as the call was finally answered by a human male with beach blonde hair and a broken nose sitting in a mech-sized workshop. I gave a weak smile. Hey, David, it's been a while? David's face went from serious to wearing a shit-eating grin faster than it took for me to blink. Alex, how the hell have you been? I haven't seen you since we both graduated out of the mech training program. Well, I could be better, since I did kind of kick off the entirety of today's events. I've also been kicked off the security team on the ship that I'm in because my mech got ruined, I said with a sigh. Damn, that sounds pretty rough. What happened to it? He asked. I turned the camera so that he could get a better look at it. The hell did you do to it? It looks like it went through an active war zone. Well, I said, turning back the camera to me, that's kind of what happened. I was fighting off a pirate raid with my team when the pirates managed to get me with an IED. The chest armor is completely done for. I had to replace the battery just for it to start working again, and the movement matrix for the lower half is completely destroyed. He gave an impressed whistle at the damage that it took. Damn, now that's a lot of damage. So what, do you want me to put in an order for a new one? He asked. I shook my head. I'm going to have to get a new one anyway if I ever pay this one off, but I was wondering if you could possibly get me some schematics to get it into working order again. I still have 3 weeks in transit before I get to the strength through diplomacy after all. He scratched his 5 o'clock shadow. I mean, I can probably get you a schematic for the chest armor, not the latest model, but still better than what you have, but the movement matrix is a no-go. Proprietary technology and whatnot, you understand? I nodded. Yeah, I do, but I was also wondering if there was a way that I could motorize the wheelchair setup that I have right now and have it respond to my commands, so I'm as mobile as I was before everything went to hell. It would also help if it were in a format that the galactic community's fabricators are compatible with, because I had enough trouble with trying to get the battery made. He continued to scratch at his 5 o'clock shadow. I can see what I can cook up, but it'll probably take at least an hour or so before I can get you some kind of working prototype. Also, if you could send me the schematic for the wheelchair that you have, that would help move this process along significantly. I'll definitely do that right now because I don't really have anything else going on right now, I said as I sent him the schematic of the wheelchair. Oh, I exclaimed. I just remembered, Could I also get the schematics for a jump pack or something for when I don't want to use the mech? He gave a smile. I can do that. I can't imagine your captain will be too pleased about that, though. I rolled my eyes. Bold of you to assume that she isn't already pissed about this to begin with. Anyways, thanks for letting me call you and give you an entire engineering project to work on instead of you doing work, I said with a chuckle. Think nothing of it, he said with a dismissive wave. Just remember, you owe me and you owe me big time once again. I nodded and we said our goodbyes. I laid back down on the bed as I groaned in frustration. That man could remember debts better than any other man that I knew, and he would hold it against me as the debts mounted. I was taken out of my growing whirlpool of emotions by a message from the captain that read, "Would you please meet me in my ready room? We have some things that need discussing." I shot off a quick message saying that I was coming. I stared up at the unyielding face of the mech, once more into the breach.
Captain Elliot, Tribunal, damn this Terran. Why is he so high maintenance? I thought as I looked over the instructions that I had been given by High Command. Due to the sensitive nature of the galactic community's relationship with United Terra, it would be in the best interest of all parties for Alex the Terran to be removed from his role as a security personnel aboard the trading ship Shooting Star. It is theorized that if he remains in that role, then he will be at greater risk of dying, especially with the report of his ruined mech, and further degrading galactic community Terran relations. I didn't like it any more than Alex did. He was one of my best security officers, after all, and was one of the reasons that the pirate attack earlier today was repelled so effectively. Why couldn't he just stay in his cabin until we got to the Terran ship? Why does he insist on working so much? I reached for the cup of tea that I had made this morning and took a sip. An involuntary shudder went through my body as I tasted the ice-cold liquid. Damn this eventful day. I didn't even get a chance to enjoy my tea, I thought as I dumped it into the recycler. "Come in!" I shouted as I heard a knock on the door. The Armored Terran himself rolled in the room until he was sitting in front of my desk. "You wanted to see me, ma'am." "You wanted to see me, ma'am?" Alex asked. I looked at the featureless face of the mech for a moment before giving a deep sigh. "I want to have a conversation with you, but I would prefer if it were face-to-face if you would be okay with that." He nodded his head, and with a hiss, the front hatch of the robotic head opened up to reveal the tiny Terran strapped into a chair that was correctly proportioned for him, with controls all around. "What was it that you wanted to talk to me about?" he asked. I didn't answer for a bit of time as I just stared at him. I considered lying to him and giving him a task on the ship that would keep him out of trouble, but from what he told me, that wouldn't work at all. "To be honest with you, I don't know what to do with you." Pardon me?" he asked. "I don't know what to do with you." I picked up the datapad that I had the orders from my superiors on and handed it to him. "These are the orders that I was given as soon the report came in about the indomitable crusade. Simply put, I can't have you on the security team because people more important than both of us combined are terrified of what will happen if you die on the galactic community's watch. Even if you repaired that mech of yours to better than when you got it, I couldn't keep you on the security team. United Terra has already threatened to shut down all trade with those that didn't condemn the Yalayans once. What's to say that they won't do that again? They have the power to get their demands met without the extra incentive of keeping you alive." He looked from me to the datapad and back to me. "Well, I don't know what to tell you. I need the money for this job, and if I can't get it, then a court-martial isn't going to be the only thing that I need to worry about when I get back to Terran space." I gave him a look. "What do you mean by that? How badly do you need that money?" His eyes widened as he digested my words quickly, and he suddenly slapped his face with one of his hands. "I completely forgot that you Xenos don't know anything about Terrans and Terra apart from what I told you before. Okay, I'll explain. So, you know how a good portion of the galaxy lives as close to a post-scarcity society as you can get, right?" I gave a flick of my tentacle to signal him to continue. After all, my species had figured out all that centuries ago. "Well, humanity hasn't exactly figured that out just yet. Necessities are taken care of by the government and things like that, but corporations still run rampant. Unfortunately for me, the mech business, or at least the ones made for civilians, is run by these corporations. He then turned the mech so that I could see underneath its arm. I looked closer and could make out a tiny inscription written in what I assumed was a Terran language. This one was made by a company called Stardust Solutions. After I got my mech license, I bought this on loan about the same time that I signed on with your ship. And if I don't make my payments, then the debt collectors will make my court-martial look like a picnic. He looked at me earnestly. So, when I say I need the money from this job, I need it. I was floored. I had just assumed that the Terrans had figured out how to shape a post-scarcity society since they were both spacefaring and a fleet-based species. How have you not gotten to that point yet? I asked, shock evident in my voice. He threw up his hands in frustration. We only figured out that aliens were real 10 years ago. Give us a break if greedy pricks still exist and are a menace to society. I nodded as I tried to process the information that I was being given. Well, I can't have you on the security team anymore, and I can't let my best security officer be taken down by debt collectors. So, what can you do with your given capabilities that I can pay you for? Can you repair machinery? I asked in desperation. Not any machinery that you all use? Can you cook? I was always a terrible cook. Do you know how to maintain aquaponics? I'll be honest, I don't even know what that means. That warranted a face slap. Then what can you do? I almost shouted. He gave a shrug. Well, apart from giving Terran history lessons or teaching people how to shoot their guns more accurately, there's not much that I can do. I kind of just skipped over everything that wasn't fast-tracking me to a job as a security officer. My dad was quite insistent about that. There has to be something that you can do. He got a look in his eye, one that in any other species would signal insanity. But I felt like that was just the look that they got when they had a terrible idea. Do you have anyone watching the security feeds on the ship? He finally asked. No, we don't. We have a low-level SysX that takes care of the security feeds, but we do look at them every so often. Why? Because it's customary on Terran ships that someone looks at the security feeds to see if there is the potential for stowaways and general wrongdoing. It's been a time-honored tradition for there to be at least one person to stare at screens until their eyes bled just in case something was to happen. Think about it. This way you get me out of patrolling and potentially performing anti-piracy actions. I get to keep getting income, and I still get to do what I am good at doing, which is defending this ship. In this case, everyone is happy. I keep a well-paying job, you get to follow your orders, and I won't have to deal with the risk of taking a faulty mech into combat. I thought about it for a moment. These Terrans and their crazy plans that might just work. If we were to do that, then I would have to find another person to cover when you're sleeping, and I'll have to talk to the head of security to find out if this is possible. As for your pay, we'll just keep it at the same level that you are at right now, with room to grow if you help crack down on the discipline issue that we seem to be having these days. Alex looked ecstatic. All right, I look forward to finding out how this whole arrangement will work out. If you need any more specifics about how it works on Terran ships, then I would be more than happy to tell you if we get to that point. He suddenly looked down at his tiny communication device. Oh, shoot. I've got to go, but I hope that this conversation has alleviated your concerns about having me on the crew. I gave a dismissive wave. Of course, I'll be in contact with you as the situation develops. Until then, I hope that you stay safe. He nodded. And you as well. With those final words spoken, he sealed up the mech again and wheeled his way out of the room and onto the bridge. I massaged my head. These Terrans are shaking up the galaxy just by existing. I wonder how the galaxy will adapt.